vulnerability is a superpower as an artist, and it's like the ability to like craft it in a way as a rapper. Not everybody has it because not everybody has sincerity. You know, a lot of people aren't the same person. I've heard people say that before, like, "Oh, I got the rapper hat on" or whatever. Which I'm like, you know, I kind of understand that in a way, but you can't like detangle me from my rap persona or whatever it might be, because it's not really that much of a persona.
Microphone check, 1 2. What is this? It's the 5'7" assassin in the podcast business. I am your host, Rohan Patra, the rap music plug at your service. Here we are again at the end of a rainbow. Listening to the latest album of today's guest, PremRock, is more than just a great experience. It feels like spending time with an old friend. This is in reference to a great quote from Dan-O of Freemusicempire, and there's no better example of this than PremRock's latest opus, Did You Enjoy Your Time Here, which feels like the type of record that will be with you through thick and thin, through the ups and the downs. PremRock's lyrics are immaculately written, treating the listener with melancholic, existential reflections that have a way of grounding you in this lucid state of calm. On top of that, the collaborator list is an all-star cast that we've grown to know and love in the Backwoodz universe, who provide the canvases and guest verses that elevate this album to indelible heights. Did You Enjoy Your Time Here is one of the best albums, not only of this year, but of the decade. A record that is sure to be in rotation for years to come. So it's of course an honor to have the man of the hour, PremRock, here on the show to speak on his mindset creating this latest album, how vulnerability is his superpower, and much, much more. So listen on to learn more about one of the most impactful records you'll hear in a very long time. And if you're in Toronto on April 17th, join us at Basement 254 to see him and friends perform this incredible record live. Also, your boy may or may not be making his DJ debut that night too, so it'll be surely a night to remember. Check the description for a link to buy tickets. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode. The Rap Music Plug podcast presented by QLC TV is the remedy to the I don't have anything good to listen to problem. Through in-depth artist interviews, album reviews, and general rap commentary on the best that the underground rap scene has to offer, this is your one-stop shop to knowing what to add to your queue, play next, or pop into your record player. Welcome to the show. PremRock, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. You're the first pod that I'm doing, so the first chance to talk about the record. So I feel good. I got, you know, hopefully I got a lot of things to say about it. Yeah, I'm feeling all right though.
And how has like the album release day been for you so far?
Overwhelming, in a good way. You know, a lot of great messages from folks I never heard of, people who've been supporting for a long time, and friends. You know, family in general. It seems like it's being received pretty well early. It's early. It's early. We don't want to let things die out. Like, you know, the problem with like art nowadays is you get really, really, you put a lot of emphasis on the day of the release, and you want everything to move that day, and then the next day you're, you know, it's a bit of a come down, but that's not what we're trying to do anymore. So
Yeah, those like extended releases are usually the ones that are most successful. And there's ways you can do it as an artist. Like I think Sharif is really good at that. He promotes his shit like months and months after
yeah,
it's
he
out.
loves the rollout and the rollout after the rollout, and
Yeah.
yeah, because you should be doing that, and you know, I think all of us need a reminder sometimes.
hmm
Yeah.
And I mean the record's ridiculous. I mean, I've been pretty vocal about it. It's like just a it's like one of those things where like I'm already a huge fan, but then you hear a record, and it happens with many artists where like I hear a record and I'm like, oh, I almost feel like I underestimated you. Like I'm like that Shaq meme
Ah,
where I'm like, I
that's
wasn't
good.
familiar with the game, but I thought I was. Like I thought I
I love
was a
to hear
huge
that.
fan, like, but this
Right.
is just like so damn impressive. And I actually want to start by referencing a conversation we had back in, it was the summer of 2023. I'm positive on that because I know some other stuff we talked about when you were in Toronto.
Yep.
I think you were just visiting. I don't think it was like when you had a show necessarily. It was like August.
It was
We went to Chubby's.
if you remember, it was I opened for Woods, but then I stayed for 3 days.
Oh, okay, then you stayed. Okay, so yeah,
Yeah.
that's what happened.
So I stayed just to kick it, just
Yeah.
to walk around and do my own thing. So yeah.
Yeah, and we were at some random bar in Toronto at the time, and the topic of this next solo you were working on came up. And I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, let me know. I thought you did tell me the title of this album, and I think it was Did You Enjoy Your Time Here? Is that correct? Do you think that would have been correct?
Yeah, I think that yeah, I changed it. I think like a week or two before I went to Toronto. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. And you
It's
had said
self-driven.
specifically that this title was like, I think you said it was a bit in conversation with the title of then upcoming Shrapnel album, Nobody Planning to Leave. Does that also sound correct?
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, it was my separate. It was a separate. The title I had written the closer before I named the record that, which is
Mm.
weird, right? But that happens to me a lot, where like phrases get repeated and like kind of thrown back and forth between songs, and even if it's shrapnel or solo. But I I hadn't like realized that I said it, if that makes any sense. Like I knew obviously that I wrote that song, and then when I heard it back on, I was like, I had been like, yeah, did you enjoy your time here? Like that's what I want to name this record. And I had this little piece of cardboard that I wrote it on, and I put it above my workstation. But I was like bouncing around at the time. I hadn't settled on a spot to live, as it was like a period of like a lot of transition. But then I'm like, the title of the record was right there the whole time, and I even wrote a song about it. But I hadn't named the record that yet, which is funny. But that's kind of how things work sometimes. Because Shrapnel didn't have that name until after we recorded the song, where I say nobody planning to leave.
Yeah.
When Tommy was like, was Controller 7 was like, that's a great line. We should call the record that. And then Castro was like, yeah, I agree. And then I was like, oh shit. So sometimes that's the way it works, you know. And I don't normally name something and then work on from that. Uh, with that being like the theme and like the, like that I don't think has ever really happened to me. But yeah, that's so. Did you enjoy your time here? It was like I like gave myself the clues, but I didn't find it right away.
Yeah, like when I think of that title, all of the assumptions and thoughts I had when you initially, because I remember when you told me the title, I was like, damn, that's a really weighty title. Like like a lot, my brain was firing. And I think it all kind of came true to what I was like expecting in a sense where this is just a very consistently introspective record. I feel like the most you've ever kind of opened up before. And that pensive, like curious spirit is just like illuminates all of the lyrics and the thoughts on this record. It's just really, really impactful. And so I'm curious to know like to start like what was like your mindset that you were in when recording and writing this record? Like, what were some of the inspirations to the content and like what you wanted to get off your chest?
Yeah, I mean, it was a process that went like kind of it was a long process to make this whole record. You know, like I went through different iterations of like what was going on. Like some of the earlier tracks that I recorded, I think Doubt Mountain was the first one that I wrote. And then that was kind of like a post Load Bearing Crow's Feet, where I was kind of just the pen was like really, really moving, and I'd hit up Young Morpheus for beats, and he sent me a pack, and I chose the ones that became Doubt Mountain and Cruel to Walls. So those songs were kind of done early on in the process, and early on in the process, I was living a different life, right? And then obviously, you could probably figure it out. There was a breakup, from some of those songs. So obviously that a long-term relationship had, dematerialized, and all the things that come with that. The reflection, the initial disappointment, whatever. All I imagine most people have been through a breakup. So, and then this one was particularly uprooting because of having lived together and all that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
So I was going through quite literally living, housing, transition, all that stuff. So a lot of it was created during that time. So when I eventually ended up staying at an apartment that a dear friend's mom, shout out Henry Canyons and shout out his mother. She was out of town and she was like, "Oh, if you need a spot, you can have mine," which was such a godsend as I just like kind of like wrote, floated, worked, and that was like the most of the record was like kind of formed at that point or was being written. So it was a state of I had like a storage locker and like was like kind of bouncing around and that was around the time I went to Toronto. So I definitely include that Toronto trip as part of like the galvanization of this record, right?
Hmm.
And it was kind of the bulk of the record was created during that time. So that's 23, you said? Yeah, the summer of 23. And I would say unstable, not mentally, but like physically, like around me. Like I don't know, my environment was like kind of always changing, which is okay because I'm kind of used to that. It kind of reminded me of like being on tour in the city that you live in a bit. I was kind of going around and you know I was all just kind of awaiting like a good housing opportunity for the next, whatever. And folks have been there, especially in a major city. That's like it's never like easy, but I've been here a long time, so I had a lot of homies look out for me. And so I would say that's like the majority of my mindset during this record was also like I needed to get it done. I needed to get it off my plate, like artistically, creatively needed to get it off my chest in order for me to move on, like to doing everything. So
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned Morph. When he was on the show, whenever like From Whence It came out, so I think that's 2023 as well. He
yeah,
was talking about, I think something about like how he was like the time period he was recording that album, and he had mentioned that I think he was traveling a lot. I hope I'm getting that it was him, but yeah, I think he said he was traveling a lot, and that point you're making about how you were kind of just like always in this like transitory living condition, it
yeah.
tends to make you like more reflective naturally. Like even when you're like taking a plane or something, you're just uprooted from your normal day to day, and it just kind of has that effect on a lot of people. And I feel like that vibe is just like so strong on this record.
Yeah, yeah, I knew it would come through. As as the record shaped and like became what it is now, right? But yeah, did you enjoy your time here? Was a phrase that would not leave my head. It was constant, and it was whether or not I'm talking about something so brief or something like with a longer period. And then I was like, I thought it was funny how it could have a couple different meanings, and also it could be like a tongue-in-cheek question like, well, did you enjoy the record, like
Hmm.
and the closer was a closer as soon as I recorded it. I'm like, nah, this is a closer. So
Yeah, yeah. Like this is a very particularly extent existential album, and I wonder as a more mature artist in your career and human generally, how
yeah,
has like aging impacted the tone of your music and like the kinds of, pictures you want to paint in your raps?
yeah, I mean it informs, obviously it's going to inform everything about you, but it has like colored the lens of like, what do you want to be remembered for? Like, I'm not ever going to be an artist that drops like two projects a year. Well, two solo projects a year. Never say never with Shrapnel. But like, I'm not that type of artist where you're going to get like, a ton of stuff. Like I'm going to continue to be a bit more underexposed than most, which is something that I've valued as I've gotten older. And I'm like, I want it to be that way. And it isn't even like tactical. It's just natural. It's just how I produce, and it's like things have to come into place and kind of find their own home. And I think that like getting older, obviously you choose your words more carefully, right? You can speak things into existence. You can speak things into power, good or bad. And also like you don't want to, you want to make sure that what it is you believe is like coming through, and not everybody knows where you stand on everything, right? And so like I just think careful with my output has been part of like the aging process in a much more positive light, right? Hip hop's always been a youthful movement, and like the youth, they got it right now, man. And everyone that's doing things, my my junior or whatever 10 to 15 years are killing it. So they're all good, but what I could do is offer like the things that like I learned along
Mm-hmm.
the way, right? And some people don't ever grow up, but like, you know, that's certainly the thing that in my music. I've experienced some lows, man, so it's like I'm gonna give it to you warts and all. So
Yeah. Yeah, I really feel like on this album you can hear how careful you are with your words and just like it's almost impossible I feel on this album and most of your work, but I think especially again this record where like there's not a often it's never the case where like I hear you go through some kind of thoughts in some verse where it kind of just feels a bit unclear what you're actually trying to say because you maybe didn't write it properly or you didn't like fully articulate it. Like everything feels like it's been like edited really strongly and really consistently so that it's all kind of very sharp and clear of whatever you want to get off your chest.
yeah, I appreciate you saying that. That's the truth. Yeah, I mean, editing is a big part of like writing for me. It's a big it's part of the the exercise, right? Like a lot of it comes out of you stream of conscious or like bursts, but and that there's such an art to that too, and I don't think that there's a right way to do it, but for me it's editing is part of the that's part of the process.
Yeah, and you have a track here called Receipts, which I think has been an early favorite for many,
Yeah.
featuring Woods, and I think it's definitely like a surefire like song of the year candidate. It might be one of your best songs ever,
Mhm.
period. Like it genuinely gives me goosebumps and it gets me really emotional and you have this like on the hook or whatever you say like and the universe repeats itself, provides receipts. It's up to you to keep yourself. First of all, that's just like that's so clever. Like
Thank you.
I was
Thank
like,
you.
damn, that's sick. But there's more than that. This song is just powerful in just the way it was written, but also the way that the instrumental was chosen and kind of swells and progresses. Like, tell me more about how you two, you and Woods, and I guess Controller 7 as the producer, put this like wonderfully touching record together.
Oh, thank you for saying so. I actually had that quote written on my wall for like a very long time. Like I wrote it on a piece of cardboard paper,
Was it
and
like a lyric you had thought of, or you just had it as like a thing you wanted to?
I wrote it down, and it was like a quote I liked a lot, and I put it. And as my girlfriend pointed out, I had spelled receipts wrong, so shouts to that. But then we made sure it was corrected when it's time to write the credits. It is what it is. I before E, except after C. You got to remember that. But I got the beat from Controller 7. We had done Nobody Planning to Leave, and he had sent me that and the opener. Um, Tommy would know for sure. I don't remember exactly when this was. I could probably hunt it down in the emails, but I wrote it almost immediately, and I was like, nah, I'm like, and sometimes with features, you go, you don't know what song is definitely gonna have a feature. At least not for me, and sometimes it ends up like as a happy accident, like with Pink Sifu. I had sent him Call Abandonment Rate from Through Lines.
Mm.
He was like, "You got anything else?" And in hindsight, I'm like, "Yeah, nah, that shouldn't have been Seafood. That should have been Def C," and it was. And then when I sent him the beat that I had only called Wool, he was like, "Oh my, nah, this is it. Like, why didn't you send me this first?" So you know what I mean. So that's like, I almost like it's better to be lucky than good because I was lucky there that he didn't just write something to call him Bannerman, right? And then we might not have gotten either track. Well, we wouldn't have gotten either track the way it's supposed to be done. Now with this, from the moment I heard it, I wanted Woods on it. From the moment I heard it, and it's been a while, and Woods is obviously busier than he's ever been. So he's like, I'll get to it. I'll get to it. And to a fault, because I can't lie to him and be like, yeah, the record's coming out. So you gotta, he's like, he knows when the record's coming out. He knows when it needs to be turned in. So he's gonna do it before then. So his verse was the last thing that was done for this record for sure. He heard the beat at some point in the last year because I'm like, hey, can you just tell me if you're with this or not? Because maybe I'm off the mark. And he was like, no, this is cool. And I'm like, cool. All right, so we're going forward with that because I'm like, otherwise I'm gonna pick something else for him to get on. But that was always my vision, man. Like it reminded me of like it's one of my favorite versions of him is when you get the kind of the wise like reflective Woods, and there's obviously he's like one of the world's greatest writers of any medium right now. So I'm like, I know he's gonna understand the assignment. And seven, controller seven, I don't know, there was something maybe he changed. He definitely, once we got the Woods verse, he did post production, so that wasn't what you heard. It's an odd time signature, so I think when it looped around, there was some changes that needed to be. And then I think that when you hear that little ding when Wood starts, which is like iconic now, that was Tommy in post. And obviously Green mixed the hell out of it because nobody mixes my voice or Woods' voice like him. And I knew it was special when I got it back. It was really when I got it back from Green that I was like, fuck, man, like this is like, because I would run it back and I'm like, this makes me like, this does make me emotional. And I'm like, I
Mm-hmm.
want people, when I do a song with Woods, like it was similar with Bardo. I got a pack from Evidence, and I'm like, Jesus, this was like Christmas first and foremost. It was like Christmas. It's like 10 Christmases in one. And I'm listening, I'm like, banger, 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 Jesus Christ. And then finally I get to Bardo and I'm like, this is the one, because it's the most memorable, and it's gonna pull both of us out of what we normally do. And like that's what I have to try to achieve when we're doing these songs together. Because like Woods is not an artist. Again, he's an underexposed artist as a feature artist. He's not doing a ton of features, and that's by his own design. And he only does things that make sense for him. And I'm like, if we hit this the way that we hit this, I'm like, this song is going to stay with people for I think for good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is going to be in your, like, imagine like the power of that is like immeasurable. And of course we could have done one of the sub joints, and it would have been a banger, and like everyone would have loved it. And I could have got the another version of Woods that everybody loves. And but I'm like, this is how you make I'm swinging for the fences with this song. Like, and if it doesn't land, like it's gonna suck. You know what I mean? I'm gonna, but from day one, from the day that I got that, this doesn't happen very often. I knew like I know I could hear it. I had like almost written his verse in my head because I was living with it for so long. And when I sent the early iteration to Castro was like, you might want to put someone in that second verse on receipts. And I'm like, no, 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 that's Woods, but he hasn't done his verse yet. And yeah, so I mean, his verse exceeded. I wouldn't say exceeded my expectations. It's what I expected of him. I expected him to do what he did. And yeah,
And like, did you when you initially posited this idea to get on the track with Woods, like, did you kind of tell him like cliff notes of like what you wanted to get out of him, like in terms of kind of the content, it being about this particular subject, being pretty emotional,
I think
etc.
I may have been like, I want like the wake keloid. I want that.
Yeah.
I want that kind of vibe. I may have said that, but I think you know I think he got it. I think he got it anyway, just from hearing my verse. Yeah.
I mean, you say like swinging from the fences. That's how I felt like the first time I listened to it. I still feel it, where it's like I keep going back to that part of the song on the end of towards the end of your verse where like the keys start to change and like you start to enter the like the hook or whatever. I'm just like, wow, this is so bold. Like, 'cause this is a very like it's a very pretty, it's a very
Mhm.
soft, like I don't mean that as a pejorative, but it's a very soft instrumental, right? Like even by either of your kind of like past catalog, the only thing that actually reminded me of a bit was Woods on the No Name record that
Mhm.
dropped 2023. Because I remember when I hearing that, I was like, damn, I've heard him rap like this sort of, but like so that part, like the wake, like all those I hear, but the instrumental was so damn soft and gospel. It was like, damn, I've never heard him like this. This was the second time I feel like I've in a while where I've been like, wow, I've never heard either of these two artists make a song like this, and that's really hard to do given how much music you guys have put out. And yeah, like that
Yeah.
shit was just like unbelievable.
No, and I don't take that as a pejorative at all. I mean, vulnerability is a superpower as an artist. You have the ability. Like, what are you gonna? No one can ever like really diss me because I already know what all the vulnerabilities and insecurities are that I carry, and it's like it's fine, and it's like the ability to like craft it in a way as a rapper. I mean, not everybody has it because not everybody has sincerity. You know, a lot of people aren't the same person. You know, they are this one person. I've heard people say that before, like, "Oh, I got the rapper hat on" or whatever. Which I'm like, you know, I kind of understand that in a way, but you can't like detangle me from my rap persona or whatever it might be, because it's not really that much of a persona. So like a song like this, and I think Woods is similar. If you talk to him, right, like he's sort of just Woods. Like there isn't like this, you know, thing that changes that much with him. Obviously, we all have our uh sides of our personality that are different in different situations, but yeah, I don't know. I just think that it it takes years to kind of get to a place where you can properly convey this kind of emotion. And I think that I tried before and it didn't quite work. And it all lines up. It lines up with working with meeting and being coming close with Controller 7 to get like a beat like this. First of all, like, why did he send me this beat? You know what I mean? Like, what? Like, this isn't like a beat you send a rapper, really. It's like, you know, maybe you send it to like a singer or something. And
Mm-hmm.
it was I heard I fell in love with it like immediately, but like I totally get it. And also like if this is the first song you ever hear by me, that's kind of a crazy introduction, it probably will be for a lot of folks. So, you know.
Yeah, you know, with that vulnerability, it's do you see it as something that's like a risk in your artistry, or even moments where like you feel that like, oh damn, I'm like worried I'm too exposed here, or I'll be
Mm.
misunderstood, especially when
Mm.
it's like personal things that people may actually know in your
Um,
life.
Worried? No, no. I mean, you're an artist. You're going to be misunderstood, like regardless. Like you can fight it. You can take to Twitter and IG and clarify yourself if you want to. But I don't see the need for that. Yeah, it's I don't know. I don't think that like there you could be too. It's everybody has it's a spectrum of what you're comfortable with, right? Like you know, I'm not gonna I'm not going to hide things, but I'm not going to mention things that might, I don't know, I don't want to be dissected or, you know, I mean, once you release it, it isn't yours anymore. That's like it's an age old adage, but it rings true. Once this is out, you know, it's not really up to me what gets said about it. So, no, I don't get worried about it.
And when we shift gears to one of my others, I think it's probably like my second or just like my dual favorite track on this record is Doubt Mountain,
Mm.
which I think is actually unlike Receipts, where like we said, it's like that's a pretty like bold entrance if someone hasn't heard of your music. Doubt Mountain, I would actually say is like the quintessential PremRock song. Because
Okay.
it's just like it's got this like really like the hooks. I've noticed this over the years with you have just gotten better and better, but like it's still very like, you know, wordy, but in a good way. It's such an earworm. Like I and then Doubts Mountain. Like I just love it so much. And like I feel like throughout the song you just zero in on a topic, peeling off the layers so beautifully with that nuance and that lyrical detail. And it's the type of writing that reminds me of like, because I know you're a fan of like Tom Waits, and like singer-songwriter music is something that you're an actual like passionate fan for. And it just shows off, I think, in the way that you approach your verses sometimes, where like it's very indicative of those kinds of styles of music where they can take like a lot of the best artists like that, take like the seemingly mundane situations and just kind of like find something very profound or interesting or captivating. And you do that on this song and throughout the whole damn record. And it's just like, I think that would be like a great representation of like what you do. That would be a song I'd share.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah. Down Mountain was, like I said, might have been the first song I wrote for this record. And shout out to Young Morpheus, you know, that was his beat. He really liked what I did, which was nice to hear. You know, you never really know sometimes like what artists think of what you then create. It's always nice to hear that they like it. Yeah, Down Mountain was like I was like something I was thinking about as a concept, like as like, oh, it's like what if like what if like, and this isn't like solely applicable to artists, right? Like I think everyone can relate to the fact of like waking up and being like, damn, I gotta like climb that mountain today, right? And like sometimes as an the struggle artists go through is like, is my art good enough? And the doubt mountain is like climbing to the top of that, and then cool, and then the day's over, and then you gotta start it again. But I got some like I got some humorous lines in there that like
Hmm.
if you're a football fan,
The Kyler Murray one.
a couple of my friends have texted me the Kyler Murray one, and I'm like, yeah, I was proud of that one. I was proud of that one. But it's like injecting levity into the situation because it's not so dour. And Green was a big proponent of this record because it may have been on the cutting room floor. If I'm being perfectly honest with you,
Wow.
it may have been on the bubble. I didn't want to lose it. He super didn't want to lose it, so he was like, "Nah, this is one of your ones. So just keep it on." And I was like, "Cool, cool." And the reason why I didn't want the record to have too much of a somber tone, right? And that was like that led me to like the tougher decisions were made with some of the records that you guys won't hear for a little while. It'll be assembled in some sort of separate thing, but um, and I just think it was about Sonic, and really glad that I didn't cut Down Mountain. I'm really glad I didn't cut.
Yeah, like on my first listen or two, like I really liked the album, but I do think I can understand where you're coming from initially, where it's like it wasn't really like it might have been more of a sonic thing where maybe it is like I find a lot of these beats, they're all like actually all of them are like really good, but they do kind of really center on your voice. They give you a lot of space. And I did
Mhm.
feel given like the content, there's a lot of denseness to the lyrics, and sometimes it can be like, a lot to take in early on. And so maybe a song like that you might want to cut because like, okay, I want to give more of a dynamic variety, but nah. I think it's because it's a testament to your writing. It was just that damn good that it made all of that so much more worth it that once you kind of get through that, you're like, holy shit, this is like I don't want any of these songs to cut. I want this album to just run on for,
Yeah,
eternity.
yeah, and what you're saying is like I have another song that didn't make the record where I'm rapping, like really rhyming, and I'm like, damn, like. And Green's point was like, we already know you could do that. Like, and I was like, okay, true. But I'm like, I was getting in my Doubt Mountain bag where I was like, I got to remind motherfuckers that I can really flow. And he's like, no, but this is such a well written song. And I'm like, yeah, that's the point. The point when you're making an album is always got to be what services the record. You know what I mean? And I might play you that song right now. How did you cut this? And you could be right in your reaction, but for me, it was all about putting the best project together, and that's what happened there. And you do have to make some tough choices, and then kind of got to write some tough emails sometimes and be like, "Yo, I'm like, my bad. This just didn't make the record." And I'm not trying to like overinflate my importance, but every artist wants their contribution included in a project. So
I mean, like, yeah, it's like I think it is that Green's point, like the fact that this is there's a consistent tone and theme, like in the hands of a lesser writer, it could be a negative where it's like, man, this isn't worth it enough. Like you're kind of sounding redundant. There's nothing special. Give me something different. The consistency is like what I just keep getting drawn to. Like this past last couple weeks, really is like since whenever you sent me the advance has been like it's actually been a very positively tumultuous time, if that makes sense in my life. Like, there's been a lot of change, but it's been a lot of like anxiety of like, oh, will I hear back? Will I get this a new thing? Like, been a
yeah,
lot
yeah,
of newness in my life that's given me a shit ton of anxiety. And this
sure.
record has just been a consistently just like, like just putting me in like a nice sober mind state. And so like those are the records that I find are the most special, where like they just have that much power. And maybe had you put more rapping ass tracks, it would have been sick, but it might have just lost that luster, you know?
Yeah. I appreciate you saying so. I'm glad that it was able to do that. I think it's pretty grounding in its sound. So that's cool to hear that, that it was an anxious time and you put it on and it's like stabilizing. That would be the theme of the record for me. Like in my life, it was a stabilizing process, right? Like it was like this is the one thing that I know I can control that's going on in my life is like putting my best foot forward on this album. And I'm glad I and people who got the advance early, like when I sent it out to you, the intention was I probably sent it out a little earlier than I normally do, is because I hope that you like take your time with it. Like by 2 a.m. there were two rate my music reviews up, and I'm like, what the fuck is going? How did you give me a 3.5 already? Like you don't even like. How is this already a three mic record? Like, that's something you got to deal with. I'm sure there's a YouTuber that has it up calling it mid, 1 hour later, but it is what it is.
Yeah, like the yeah, week one, my week one experience with this record was like, oh, this is really sick. Week two was like, yo, this is like amazing. And then week three onward, just basically where we're at now, where I'm like, nah, this is like I said, I think this is one of the best albums of the last couple of years, last few years. It's not like just in contention for this year. It's really that amazing.
Thanks.
Um,
Means a lot,
and
man.
I have a patron question from Joshua Davis related to this kind of topic of writing,
What up,
and
Josh?
he wanted to understand what the first domino that fell, which kind of sparked your passion for writing, particularly writing that's like very intricate in how it's layered and like the metaphors and all of that.
Is this a modern question or like in my life?
Oh, in your life, yeah. It could be, and it
Uh,
could be like the not even music necessarily. It could be like film or something, or read or
well,
like literature.
well, one thing I remember is like I learned how to read and write like young. My older sister was kind of helping me, and my parents didn't really know about it. And then my mom and dad wouldn't let me do something when I was like really young, and I wrote a letter that stated I was going to run away from home. And I was like 5, and they found it, and they were like, "Did you write this?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "This is good." And then they like bought me a bunch of books, and so that was the first thing I ever wrote was I'm leaving home. Sorry, and I was
That's
5 years.
hilarious.
Uh, but then like much later on, I was influenced by a lot of like the literary giants of the time before me, even obviously like the beat guys, beat generation, Kerouac and them, James Baldwin later on in my life. Malcolm X was probably my favorite book in high school, but that was more biographical. So, um, like to apply it to writing, like in hip hop, and like because like I guess I when I was young, I always wanted to write a book, but I just don't ever. I mean, maybe 10 years from now, that'll be something that like I kind of look into more. But like it isn't the way that things form for me. Like I've tried many times to kind of stitch together like narratives, and maybe short stories will be something that you see for me at some point, because I have a lot of like ideas that I haven't had the time to flesh out. But like in terms of when like you adapt it into to rap writing, because it does always sort of feel separate. um I think that's when you start to hit your stride, and I think you're seeing that with people like Woods, where it's like if you take the verse on its own, that is kind of a story. And and we aren't writing books, not at the rate that we used to. The great novelists of like 2 generations ago would probably be rappers today. A lot of
Yeah.
them, I actually think that, um poets, rappers, musicians, songwriters, things of that nature. Like I think that is what we would see more of. So I don't know if I'm answering Josh's question, but it's like uh I think I hit a stride like 5-6 years into writing and recording and releasing music, where I was like I'm allowed to bend and break the rules of rap writing that have been set up by nobody really. It's just like you can use that influence from Elliott Smith or from Kurt Vonnegut and like write that kind of and there's like a lot of references, a lot of Easter eggs in this album too that I haven't heard people pick up on, but hopefully they do. So I don't know if that answered Josh's question, but
No,
I
it
tried.
did. It did. Yeah. Yeah, like the that literary, yeah, that literature influence has always been like very clear in your music. And I have another patron question before I move on. There was a lot of patron submissions. I had to say I had to, sorry
Oh,
guys, I
really?
had to cut some because there was people very interested to hear about you in this record. This is an
That's
interesting question because you kind of talked about this earlier. It's from Ryan, aka Levitator, and he
What's up,
asks
bro?
about like your process, your writing process, but specifically it's about like how do you carve out time and brain space to create while also doing like a day job or
Mhm.
non-music related work too, because that's something so many working artists can relate to.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I'm not shy about saying that. I have another gig, obviously. Yeah, you want to give yourself a full day if you can, to try to make sure that day is centered around creating in some way or another. And some days it could be like, make sure you go do something. Like make sure you go watch a movie, or go to a museum, or take a walk, or do something that like you need time. Like I think, rest in peace, David Lynch. I think he said like if you want to get an hour of work, give yourself 3 hours. I think like he said that at some point. And if he didn't, then fuck, that's a dope thing to take away anyway. So like give yourself time, give yourself grace. Like you're going to like have periods of inactivity where you're like, oh, I have 4 hours before work, but like it ain't hitting. Like you're not, nothing's coming, and that's okay. Like because you are a person, and like you do have to go and like literally shift into a different person, whatever job you're doing. Like you just have to. And I've been able to like get things done before work, sometimes after work or whatever. But I also been learning to live and listen to when it's like time to not do it. But you know, I'm a New Yorker, so the train is always going to be something that like a lot of artists are like, yeah, get something on the train, because there's a lot of activity on the train. And now we got our phones, so we can just jot down couplets. So I do that during transit, uh, to and from work. But I mean, I think the most important time is to give you the most important thing is to give yourself time, give yourself space, and like the ability to make some stuff that won't ever be recorded, won't even hit, and also like don't be too hard on yourself. Like you're still like I'm a victim of that. Like I'm putting all my eggs, all the weight on like got to get everything done like on this Tuesday, right? And then I don't get shit done. But then for some reason Wednesday it all comes out in 2 hours, and then I look at the clock and I'm like, damn, I gotta go into work, and I don't really have like a solid plan other than carve out the time and see what happens.
Yeah, it's definitely like about listening to your body and your mind when you're feeling fresh. Because like, that's why I find creative work so it's like so interesting because it's just not linear. It's not
Yeah,
like anything else in life really, where
no,
it's just
it's not.
about giving yourself the space and you just kind of have to listen to it. Like even preparing for this interview, like I have a certain amount of time I carve out for any artist. I didn't even need to use like half the time I prepared for this because I just was like, I love the hell of this album. I felt so inspired. It took me about like 90% of what I wanted to talk about came to me in like 2 hours. I was like,
Nice.
great. I have my rest of my week so much more relaxed. This is sick.
Yeah,
But
saving
then
you
there's
time.
other times where it's like I spend 6 hours to get 2 hours of work because I don't really know what I want to say and
Yeah, yeah,
not
yeah,
coming to me.
for
It's
sure.
just all about all of that. So like when you mentioned about earlier about how like for people there might be a lot of new listeners to you because of this, especially because of the success of Shrapnel, the success of Backwoodz more generally, and they might be surprised potentially to hear the musical tone of this album because this is definitely a sharp contrast to what we've gotten throughout most of like all of the Shrapnel catalog, really. That tends to be a bit more like immediately brash and aggressive, potentially rambunctious. The sound here is pretty mid-tempo, got these lush keys, a lot of atmospheric touches that give your voice a lot of space. Um, there's a very clear musical focus that's very similarly mirrors like the lyrical focus that's very pronounced. What would you say that focus was for you musically? Like, how did you want this record to feel like?
I wanted a little more emphasis on hooks, not in a catchy way, but in a way that like I wanted it to be considered songwriting with like song structure and things of that nature. Like I didn't want to just do one verse, although there is one or two on there like that, but I didn't really want um there's such a skill to that type of rap music that I don't actually possess. Like, you know what I mean? Like maybe one day I will make like, and honestly, like I probably will make a record like that where it's kind of just like one, not many hooks and kind of just one elongated verse and idea and thought and I like that. I like that as a fan too. Like
Hmm.
don't get me wrong, but like music, yeah, like from a musicality perspective, I knew that I wanted melodies to be centered on it. And like, I don't know that there's like a backwoods sound per se, but like I wanted to at least like present my interpretation of what it is, right? Like, you're going to get something different from a record of mine than from a shrapnel record, right? And shrapnel is a lot of energy, a lot of like interplay, a lot of camaraderie on wax in one way or another. And it's like that's the essence of a great duo too, right? Is two voices that contrast each other and foil each other. Now with mine, it's like, you can ask Castro, I was anxious like leading up to this record because I'm like, I don't know if people want to hear just me. And like shrapnel has eclipsed PremRock like more than 3-1 in terms of popularity. Like I'm privy to the numbers. I see it. And it's nerve wracking, it's like, damn, I haven't even done anything in 4 years solo. And, you hear me here and there, but I put a lot of pressure and a lot of a weight on that. And then I didn't like press too hard when it came to making the record, right? But then it was everything that came after the record was done is what I was getting, anxious about. Is like the messaging, this is me, right? Like and I'm okay with being like PremRock of Shrapnel. Like, trust me, like I'm totally okay with that. Like, but this is me. Like, so there's gonna be, the thousand or so new Shrapnel fans we've accumulated over the last 3 years. Like, are all 1,000 gonna be down with this record? Like, probably not. Are there gonna be some people that are into this record and not into Shrapnel? Like, probably so too. And like, I think when you hear it, it might be it's an addition to the catalog that Backwoodz doesn't have, and I'm a voice on the label that Backwoodz doesn't have, and that is what I embraced on this record is like it's just it's just a style of songwriting and a style of rapping that I don't think is used a lot, and as long as I refine that, instead of trying to do something I'm not. I can never rap like a lucid. Nobody can. I can never rap like Cavalier. Nobody can. Like, trust me, I've seen people try. They can't do it. And I can't rap like Castro. And but I'm like, but I can really refine who I am, and I can really focus on what makes me a strong artist. And it's like in sports when someone drafts a position where they're loaded at, and it's like, man, why are they doing that? I always love that as a fan. I'm like, yes, like fuck it, like let's get five,
Hey,
like
you're a Philly guy. You know, you guys fucking
come
do
on,
that
man.
all the time with the Eagles,
Oh,
man.
we got Jalen
And it
Carter. Let's
worked, and
get
it
another
fucking
D
worked.
tackle.
Damn,
Another D tackle.
assholes.
Yeah. Sorry for your loss. Hey man, I'm a lifer. I've been
Yeah,
through a
you've been
lot.
through. Yeah, I no
War.
hate, no hate.
That's an aside. But I've always been a fan of that as like a sports fan. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, like now no one's gonna get us there. You know what I mean? No one's gonna get us at that spot. Now we might have to work on the other spots, but that's all right. It's all right. We got the most important spot locked down. That's kind of how I looked at it with when as I've been aging and as I've been evolving as a solo artist. So I'm like, no one's gonna get me at what I do. Like, no one's gonna get me at that. But in order to get to that, I got to put the work in to refine it and to like make it my own and my own. Can I be the best? Can I be the best me? Is always going to be like the goal, right? So yeah.
And I think like when you say your interpretation of the backward sound, like I think, yeah, you still have those elements of like there's tracks like Steel Wool that are like very like, psychedelic and out there that like speak to the more like experimental bounds of a lot of the artists on on the label. But there is something again, I keep saying it's just such a very clear reflective tone. It's melancholy, yes, but I wouldn't say it's like down. It's like it's not, it doesn't bring you down, but it just puts you in that mood. And it's really pronounced, but like done in a variety of different ways. Like it's not like all the beats sound the same. Um, like you have like these, and I think the pacing of this record is actually something I've grown to really love, like as a strong point. Like you have those like steady drums of like the Blockhead tracks, the Young Morpheus drums on
Mhm.
Doubt Mountain, Crueler, Cruel Walls. You have drumless sound from Small Professor, and then you have these weird things that are placed in between, like the Lucid produced the track with Cav, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like that's such a cool swing on those in
Bonkers.
that groove of that track, and
The
then the piano
bunkers.
ballad shit, Controller 7. Like,
Yeah.
was there a
Bunk.
particular, because you did say Doubt Mountain was the first song, but I'm wondering if that still wasn't necessarily the catalyst. Like, was there a particular beat or set of beats from a producer that sort of set the tone where you're like, okay, nah, that's where I want this. That's where I want this album to go musically. That's what I want it to sound like.
Yeah, I got a lot of two packs. You know what I mean? Like I got the two from Blockhead, the two from Child Actor, the two from Jeff Markey, and I think that the and two from Young Morpheus. Now, Young Morpheus was first in succession. I think maybe Child Actor was next, which I went through a big. That was a brutal process of selecting beats for me. Max gave me too many good things, I think. So damn you. Uh, I mean, I really labored over choosing his particular beats, and I remember that once I had those two, I was like, okay, uh, that kind of enabled me to know what I wanted from Jeff Markey, right? And it's like Jeff Markey added this element of like, obviously, you have a very heavy song in Love is a Battlefield Simulation where it's like, this is heavy, like, but then you have Camel Cash, which is uh gonna it's like banging drums like okay yeah now we're on that and I think it was probably the Child Actor, Jeff Markey, the four beats of them where I was like yeah I know where I want to go, and then that's when it led me to be like I need Seb Bash to make this record what I want, and that's where you're starting to take some chances where you start going
Hmm.
out like picking the closer beat. When I heard it I was just like this beat's crazy, I don't even know how to rap on this shit, like, and then his production is just it's so wild to me, you know. Like you've heard Alchemist say like that's his favorite producer, and like there's a reason. And the funny thing is, when I was in Geneva, so it was me, Fresh Kills, and Castro. We had a day off, and we reached out to Seb, and I'm like, "Yo, can we pull up?" And he just is like, "Yeah, yo, here's the address," and we went and watched him work, man. And he just played us bangers after bang, like. But he looks for the craziest things. And the funny thing is, in that meeting, he was like, I was like, who do you fucking with these days? And he's like, he's the type of dude that's like, yeah, everything's kind of whatever, you know. And
Hmm.
you know, he rocks with like legends and all that. And then he goes, Child Actor. And I texted Max. I'm like, yeah, you should know, like, Seb Bash, like, he's rocking with your shit. And I think it was because I told Bessie, because Seb
Yeah.
and were both on that record. And he said he was the only guy in a while that made me be like, what did you do there? Because I don't really know what he did there. And you're talking to a guy who's been doing it forever. And I think Max has such an interesting swing. And I think he does a lot of his stuff. I think he's playing with it.
Yeah.
One, you know, maybe he said that, but I'm pretty sure that's what's happening.
Hmm.
So the swings and the little changes, they're not always going to be the same spot. And I think that's because he's got a loose jazz kind of like feel to his beats, right? And that so that would be the dominoes, right? Child Actor, Jeff Markey, Seb Bash, and then now all of a sudden you got 7 songs, and add the Morpheus tracks, and then I think Sevens came in later, and that's the basis of the record. But it's always like who, and I think Tony, a shout out to Blockhead as well. I think he was early on as well, and because we knew that we wanted to work with Tony. Because I had way back earlier in my career, and I liked the results, and you know, he never disappoints. Like we got some classic Blockhead beats, you know. And yeah, I think like the momentum then, if you're choosing to do a multi-producer album, that's you look for like a centering pack. Like, okay, now we got stability here, we got a foundation, and that's kind of what happened. And then it's just momentum. And then I look at it, I'm like, God damn, I have 9 producers. Like not this is not gonna be easy, right? But luckily a lot of these producers we worked with extensively, like obviously Green and Elucid and Child Actor, Small Pro, Blockhead. These are Jeff Markey. These are all producers he's
You have
mixed.
9 producers on the final cut.
Yeah, yeah, crazy.
That doesn't. I thought you had like five. It's that's what I mean. It's a good sign. It just felt
Right.
so. You
Yeah,
did a
Small
good
Pro.
job of seamlessly putting it together.
Yeah, and that's Green, man, all day. That's Green all day. I mean, he's the one who had to sift through all the stems and sift through all the whatnot, and he really earned his pay on this record, you know. And I love a one producer album. Don't get me wrong, love it, but I knew that that wasn't going to be what this is, and when it started to expand, I was like, oof, all right, but there was no way I was cutting that a Lucid song off. There was no way, like, you know what I mean? The one off, the Finds double one again was like only Fonz double is doing one here, only Elucid's doing one here, only Small Pro's doing one here. I'm like, how do these fit? But they do, they
They
do.
do.
It's like this, I think the Fonz double track could go anywhere on the record, right? Like it's got hypnotic swing to it, and shout out to him, he's underrated. But I think people are gonna start finding out what's going on with him.
His record this year was so dope too.
Crazy,
Yeah.
crazy,
Yeah,
crazy
like
work.
the that hypnotic swing is like how I characterize like a lot of these beats. Man, like
Yeah,
the especially when I was hearing California Sober on some initial listens, like I wasn't listening to it with the credits in front of me. And I think I might have posted something about this too. Like I had re-listened to Known Unknowns recently, and I was like,
yeah,
damn, Blockhead, like he's so sick. And I just had like a revitalized appreciation for how he produces. And then I was listening to that record a lot, and then I was listening to this record. And when I got to California Sober, I didn't even know he produced anything because I didn't look. And I was like, damn, this like feels like it could be right at home. That like melody that he always has, the drums, and I was like so happy to see he produced a couple records on this album. I would love to see you and him have like a speaking of like one producer ones, you and Blockhead, you and Young
yeah,
Morpheus.
yeah.
Those particular combinations would be like insane.
I would that would be just say the word and I'd be down for that. Yes, so, other people have mentioned that too. Yeah, and we take. I hope we don't take Blackhead for granted, man. He's been making beats on a very high level for a very long time. Every record he puts out, like I think we were listening to his new one in the car, me, Woods, Kenny, Castro, and Mo, and I was like, "What is this?" And Mo's like, "Oh, it's a new Blackhead." I'm like, yeah, of course it is. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's like his 10th album or something. I'm like, it sounds just like you could have pulled it from like the classic ones, you know, like from music by Cave Light or Downtown Science or something like that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
he's doing it like I don't want people to take him for granted. Like this isn't normal, like to be doing to have a run like for 2 decades where like everything is quality. So shout out Tony.
Yeah, shout out to him. And since your last solo, you've been really busy, right? It's been 4 years, but you've been busy. You have a Occam's Blazer, two Shrapnel records, EP with Green, some features for sure that were sick. Throughout it all, what area of your game do you feel like kind of has you the most proud of when it comes to growth as an
Hmm.
artist? Since
Hmm.
that last solo specifically.
Since 21, yeah. Yeah, I think I've been most proud of dynamics and the ability to feel at home at like on any given beat. You know what I mean? Like that. Like if someone sends me a beat, it's like I want you on this, or if Castor is like we're using this, like this beat, we're like we got to use it, and then like I don't see the light right away. I'm like okay, like how do I meet, you know, how do I meet the moment on this track where it's like where it's not a track I would have picked. Um, that I've been proud of is my ability to get there and then be and give it my best and then like still be like oh shit, like you know, I think if you pick 5 tracks from me, whether I'm featured, whether it's Shrapnel, whether it's Alchem's, whether it's solo of the last 5 years, it could go a huge, it could span a huge spectrum, and that's what I'm proud of because I don't want to be locked into some sort of uh monotonous box where it's like, oh, that's a PremRock type beat or a PremRock type rap. So I've been proud of that because I didn't want, you know, I don't like that. That I take as a pejorative is where
Mm.
it's like, you know, it's samey or it's like, well, I know what to expect from you. It's like, okay, you better know to expect quality, but
Yeah.
not what it is. You know, and then I mean, there's at least 10 different types of records I want to make before I stop making music, and they're all centered around different styles that you know I will know as it unfolds. I have some ideas, but I want to keep testing my own limits, vocally, because like a lot of stuff that gets lost in all this is like we're recording artists. So the actual act of recording is in our job title as artists. Like so are we taking different approaches to vocals? Are we switching up the way, someone like a Lucid has become such a great recording artist, like where I'm like, damn, like all your performances are different. You're trying different techniques in the studio. And I'm like, yeah, isn't that what every artist did throughout their whole career? Isn't that what David Bowie did and Prince? And it's like, why should we be any different
And you
as
do
rappers?
some of that on this record, right?
I
Yeah.
tried to, yeah, I tried to. And that was a testament to doing it all at Greens. And, that there wasn't like, it was over a bunch of sessions. I don't know how many, but like, he'd be like, yo, why don't you do this or do that? Or let me change something on the mic. Um, he'll ask you questions like, what do you mean by that line? Or like, you should say it with this, and then like that's cool. I like that. But yeah, we tried stuff with the performance, and I want to go further out with that, as time goes on. And I think every rapper should too, and see what else is out there for their voice, because you are a recording artist, like also,
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. For me, the thing I think of that's grown a lot is that song craft. So it's like not just it is with the hooks too. Like I mentioned Doubt Mountain. Like I'm just blown away by how sticky all of these hooks really are on this record are. But then it's like just like the little things like that are kind of hard to explain, like where maybe you like switch up your flow a little bit or you say a couplet in a certain way that's very memorable. It's just that song craft related to like nuances in creating a song that feels like a cohesive idea. Like there's a degree of congruency. I think that's the right word. Congruency in these songs where all the key elements just feel like they fit and like make sense. And that's not always easy to do. A lot of times you can have a song where the beat just feels like slightly the wrong tone or
yeah,
the hook is just like kind of ruins the vibe clunky, like none of that on this album. Like that's again goes back to that sharpness, like the clarity of this record is just so outstanding.
yeah. Thank you for saying all that. But also like rappers have a tendency where they make missteps, and where I've made missteps in my life in my career is like choosing a beat that is like definitely this beat is great. This is a great beat. But then they're fighting the beat. It's not they're not working with the beat. They're working against the beat or not in tandem. And it's like that beat should have went to somebody else. You know what I mean? And you're like, yeah, that's a banger, but you're not approaching it the right way. So maybe it should have been more of a subdued tempo or something like that. And that comes with age. That comes with experience and understanding what works for your voice and your flows and things like that. So I think that's like that's refinement. That's years of doing it, and then I'm glad it's coming through.
That's also like abundance too. Like I feel like you have so many connections and relationships with such great producers. I feel like maybe it's probably natural for a younger artist who gets a sick, like objectively, like, okay, this beat's amazing, and then they
Mhm.
just force it. They're like, I can't,
Sure.
I gotta use it. I mean, this is like the best beat I've ever received, but you're
Of
like, you'll
course.
get another great beat. Do something else with it because this is just not natural, you know?
Yeah, totally, totally. And I've done that before in my life. I've also sent beats back and been like, I'm sorry, can you mind if I get a different one? And
Hmm.
people I did early on in my career with Quelle Chris, I was like in awe of all this stuff he was playing me. I was like, oh, I was like a kid in a candy store, and I'm like, I can only, he was working with me. Trust me, he was working with me on the money, and it was still like all that I could afford was one, and I'm like, I had two, and then I was like, dude, I called him. I'm like, man, I gotta get a different one, and then because I'm like, I gotta use this because Quelle Chris, and
Yeah.
like this is gonna be the biggest song ever made. And he was such a cool cat about it back then. And I was like, that was like 10 years ago, It's funny. But yeah, no, that's definitely part of it. But that's part of the journey as an artist, you don't get it all at once. And you're gonna apply those lessons to the next time you make a song or the next time you make a record. So
And say, looking to the future now, upcoming tour dates, merch, maybe
yeah.
even additional projects. What should people look out for?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm coming to Toronto The 17th.
Mm-hmm.
I heard you might be in the house.
Yeah, I heard I might have a little DJ
Yeah,
set between the sets, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. Yeah, we'll do some promo for that in a bit. So yeah, coming up north, gonna do a few dates. Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal. Keep an eye on the socials. I'll be posting them a lot more as we get closer. Then I'm gonna do a release show in Brooklyn on the 24th of April. I'm putting together. I'm really, really hoping that this one duo works out. That have a record coming out pretty soon. That I would love it if they could make it. I have to wait 2 days to find out. So,
Has the
but
duo announced the record already?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. So you can think about that on your own time there.
Mm-hmm.
Going to Europe with Castro. We're playing Jazz is Dead Fest in Turin, Italy. And we're also playing Copenhagen, a place called Lappen. We're playing Geneva, we're playing Zurich, Switzerland. And then I have a few UK dates before that that are all getting finalized. So I think just keep an eye out for that stuff. Now, as far as recording work, Shrapnel has something to say this year. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, really? I
Oh, yeah.
actually wasn't sure we'd get one. I wasn't sure. I thought if anything, I was like maybe it's been kind of quiet on the Castro solos tip, so I was like maybe, and I know I heard something he's been
All
recording,
I could
but
tell you is Castro played me, Woods, and Kenny, what he's been working on, and it's fucking out of this world. It's out of this world.
because you both dropped that year, right? Little Robert Hutton was also
Yeah,
2021. Yeah, so it's been a while for both of you. Shit.
his
Yeah.
album will not disappoint. It's very much Castro. It's what you've come to expect from him. But I think he's probably got some more wrinkles to. He's added some more, more scoring, like
Hmm.
like more to his game. Uh,
Hmm.
and so Shrapnel definitely we've been working, and I think we some of the choices we made are going to surprise people in a good way. But if you're a fan, you're going to be happy this year. So it's going to be it's a busy year for me. Giving it all I got this year. There's no doubt about it. So
That's great. And yeah, I'm hyped for that Toronto show, April
yeah,
17th.
it's going to be a
Everybody
party.
should go check it out.
Be a party for sure.
It's yeah, no, I more to say on that, but that's gonna be exciting. Um but yeah, this album, very clear by now. I love it. It's I said it's like that Shaq meme because it really felt like that. Um and it's one of those things where like it's so good that it
Which
makes
track
me
name?
recalibrate my view of like your past records to where I already really liked them, but then I listened to Load Bearing's Crow Feet first time in a little bit this past week, and I was like, damn, this is like even better than I remember. And I had that thought a lot. I was kind of revisiting some of your old music, and um, I just really hope people take the time to hear what I'm hearing because this is like easily, I think it's my favorite album of the year, and it's like up there with some of the best of the last few years, and it's just like
Yeah,
fuck, just like unbelievable, really rewarding record.
appreciate
And
that.
yeah, thanks for coming on. It's always a pleasure having you.
Definitely. And I'll say, as an advice to younger artists who are like getting their feet wet with stuff, like don't be afraid to use older stuff if it still fits. Because it's like I felt that way. I was talking to Controller 7 about that recently, and it's like Dot Mountain was old by the time this record came out. Like to me, that was kind of an older song, but um it's still it's still brand new to anyone who hasn't heard it outside of you and the engineer or the producer or whatever. And load bearing was the same way. Like I almost didn't put Death on the Installment plan because it was so old to me. And I'm like, nah, that shit's banger. Like I still do that live,
Yeah, yeah.
like because it's time. If you write something timeless, then it's gonna sound new when it comes out. And I appreciate you saying that. Shout out to Dan-O, Free Music Empire, because he was like a good album becomes like an old friend. And he said that about Low Baron Crosby. And I remember that particular compliment really like sticking to me. And I was like, well, this is how I have to make the records. You can't chase like obviously like trend chasing or like that, whatever. Like we're not really talking about that when we talk about like Backwoodz in the contemporary
Hmm.
scene. No one's really doing that. But if your aim is to craft timelessness things, then hopefully it can live with somebody like a friend, for from here on out. That's definitely the goal. And humbling to hear you say what you've been saying. So I appreciate it.
Shout out Dan. That's a great. He's always good with those fucking quotes.
Yeah, he's a poetic soul, doesn't he? Huh?
Yeah, he's really is. He really fucking is. Yeah, and
Yeah.
Doubt Mountain's like one of the songs that has popped up as an early favorite in like my patron Discord for sure. The
Yeah,
Kyler Murray line was directly
quote.
referenced in the
Oh
sports
yeah,
channel.
yeah.
It's like, damn, that Kyler. I'm like, yeah, that's sick. That's dope. Always can count on you for those football references.
I try.
Yeah. Right, well, I'll see you on April 17th. Pumped for that show. Excited for everybody else to check out this record.
Of
And yeah, thanks for coming on.
course. Thank you for having me.
Peace.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Rap Music Plug podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and want to not only support the show, but join the fastest growing community of like-minded indie rap fans, go to patreon.com, search for the Rap Music Plug podcast, and become a patron. You will gain access to an exclusive patron-only Discord that me and 70 plus people engage with on the regular, as well as other patron-only benefits such as bonus episodes, album recommendation reviews, early access to regular episodes, and much more. So if you have any questions about any of the Patreon stuff, or just want to keep tabs on the show, interact with me on rap music and all the great stuff that we can talk about, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at rapmusicplugpod, or shoot me an email at qlctv.podcast@gmail.com. You can also rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify as well. But that's enough self-promotion for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Peace.